Now, this is completely random and completely out of whatever, but my son just learnt all this stuff and talks about it constantly. He's learning ancient Egyptian, how to read hieroglyphics. It's friggin' awesome. I mean, it is amazing the stuff he's learning to do. I can't believe it. I mean, seriously, it's incredible. The fact that he understands half of what he's talking, freaking, oh my god, it is incredible. Anyway, it did kind of make me realise that there's a lot of things we don't know, and I've said it 100 times over the years. Me and my family talk about it a lot, especially when we get to Easter. Is why does it always move? Why is it never on the same day? None of us have ever found the answer. I found it. Fucking found it. I found the answer. Right. And I found it because of my son talking about the ancient Egyptians. How weird is that? And he was talking about how the fact that because of the ancient Egyptians, we have the calendar we have today. They started it, and they did. I did a bit of research. Julius Caesar took their calendar and made it better. And then Gregory the 13th made some adaptations to it. But because the ancient Egyptians, we have the calendar we have today, they made a calendar in 662, 61 called the solar calendar. They called it a Coptic calendar, or a martyr's calendar is what it kind of translates to. And they did it through the sun cycle. They mapped it through the sun's cycle, and through the lunar year, which, I mean, to me, that's incredible, the fact that they managed to do that. It shouldn't really be that incredible, considering the fact that over the years, we map things through the stars astronomically, but they mapped the sun and the moon's cycle and made a calendar that to this day practically kind of works. But they had 13 months, sorry. They made a 13-month calendar that they mapped. They mapped the months, the days of the week, and the hours. They made a 24-hour day. They mapped a 24-hour day. The Egyptians did that. The ancient Egyptian civilization, they mapped a 24-hour day. It is because of them we know what it is. I mean, it's quite incredible, realistically. And they're the reason we know what a leap year is. It was an astronomical miracle to them, obviously. Of course it was, but it was. To them, it was an astronomical miracle. They'd never heard of it, but they called it a leap year. They even named it a leap year. They found it, and they found everything, and they stuck it all on a calendar. It was quite incredible. So they called it a Coptic calendar. It was a solar calendar that lasted 13 months, and it followed the sun. The months followed the sun. The lunar calendar, or the lunar year, followed the seasons and the days and the hours. So it was the seasons that gave us the lunar cycle. So that was their harvesting and the Nile flooding, and they mapped that through their harvest seasons and when they had to stop because of the flooding of the Nile and things like that. That's how they mapped their seasons, through their lunar cycle. When Julius Caesar kind of came around, they were working on Rome had their own calendar, which was mapped astronomically. So they had their own sort of calendar that was mapped through the stars, because they believed in the stars more than anything else. But it was kind of all over the place. It was never kind of, it seemed a bit kind of out of whack, because they were 3 months ahead of the solar calendar, and Julius Caesar brought their calendar to their astronomer. And what they did together, the astronomer's name was Sosigenes, if that's pronounced right, I have no idea. But that's what it looks like. Sosigenes is what it looks like. No idea if I'm pronouncing it right, but I don't care. He's not here to tell me I'm wrong, so it's fine. And they advised, and Sosigenes advised Julius Caesar on how this calendar looks. And actually, all they did was take the cycles, mapped it out to 365 and a quarter days. So they mapped the sun's cycle to how many days it was, rather than just, months. And then they stripped it down to its bare essentials and divided it into 12 months. So the Julian calendar stripped the solar calendar down to its bare essentials, whereas the solar calendar just sort of went, this is what it does, we were going to just do this. And that's all they really did. I mean, what they did was incredible, but they didn't really strip it down to its bare essentials and map it out properly. They mapped it out so that it followed the cycles, but they didn't really make enough sense, if you see what I mean. It did its job, but it wouldn't have worked forever. So they stripped it right down. So they used the length of the solar year. So they took their solar map, and they stripped it down to its bare essentials. So mapped the 365 and a quarter days. They laid it out, made 12 months, the months that we have now. So January, February, March, April, May, June, July, the months we have now, and gave them specific time frames, 30 days in a month, 31 days in a month, and obviously February only has 28. There were never 29 days in a month in February during Julius Caesar's time. It never happened. The leap year was put in on the 23rd of February. They did calculate it. They did not ignore it. They didn't ignore it. They did put it in. It was put in every fourth year. They didn't just go, oh yeah, well that doesn't matter. They put it in. They acknowledged it. They put it in. And they put it in on the 23rd of the month of February. And what they did, they put it there because it fell on an alignment of the Roman civic calendar. So it didn't upset anybody. It was the civic calendar day for the Romans. And it fell it was almost like in accordance with what it said it would do on as far as the solar map kind of worked. So as far as they were concerned, the solar map said that the leap year fell on the 23rd of February, but it also was a very specific day for the Roman civic calendar as well. Not 100% sure about that. I couldn't find anything about it or why it said that. I couldn't find the reasoning behind all of that. But as far as they were concerned, the solar calendar stated that it was the 23rd. And it just happened to fall on a specific day in the Roman civic calendar. Not 100% sure of that. And I couldn't really find the solar calendar's kind of thing for that. It was weird. The solar calendar doesn't, it's weird. The problem with the solar calendar is that it was when Sosigenes calculated the solar calendar, he overestimated it. So he overestimated by about 11 minutes and 11 minutes and 14 seconds. And that doesn't sound like a lot of time. But when you overestimate it by that much over a period of time, and nobody's really noticed, what happened is Caesar then, however, no idea how that happened, but Caesar in 46 BC also added 100 days in that 1 year. So instead of 365 days in 46 BC, you ended up with 446 days. We're not quite sure how that happened. Nobody quite knows how that happened, but he did that. He overcalculated something and ended up having over 100 extra days in 1 year. Nobody knows quite how that happened, but it did. And with the overestimation in Sisigines' calculations over a period of time, the seasons weren't in their right places. And it was the seasons that were moved. They were in the wrong places. So their harvests, their festivals, their everything, they were all in the wrong place. Which, of course, can cause issues when they're trying to, survive and thrive. If they don't know when to plant their seeds, and they don't know when to harvest their seeds, and they don't know when the floodings are coming or the seasons are changing, because they're out. And although it doesn't seem like 11 minutes is a lot of time, it could have caused a lot of problems. You just don't know. And from what I found, it actually did shift the seasons by 10 days. And that is a massive, massive error in its calculation. So, you shift it all by 11 minutes and you end up shifting everything back by 10 days. That is a massive miscalculation. Massive miscalculation. You put everybody back by 10 days and all the seasons were out of whack. I mean, that's like living in England right now. You never know what season we're in. Our seasons are supposed to be like dead set on certain days and we're never in them. I mean, come off it, we're England. And everybody knows. Everybody knows. You never know what you're going to get from one day to the next, and we never know what kind of weather we're going to get, even in like summer. I mean, we're in March, and we have been told that this is the coldest March that we've had in years. It's freezing out there. People have had snow. We haven't had snow in March in a long time. At least not down this end of the country. It just doesn't happen. It's not supposed to happen. We're supposed to be going into warmer months, not colder ones. So, and you can imagine that kind of shift being very difficult. But actually, this is where we get into people like Gregory the XIII in 1582, when he came into the scene. He noticed the pattern in the calendar, and he also noticed the problem in the calendar, and he shifted the whole thing back, and he changed the calendar back to 10, and put it back to what it should be. So he shifted the whole thing back 10 days. That's pretty incredible for somebody. He actually noticed it all, got the whole thing changed over and shifted to what we have now. So we all don't use the Julian calendar anymore. We all go by the Gregorian calendar, is what we all use it now, all of us, across the world. We use the Gregorian calendar. It's correct, it's the one that is up to date, but it actually is stated that it all comes from ancient Egypt. And I wouldn't have known that if it hadn't been for my son. But, and this is where I found out about Easter, in the Eastern Orthodox churches, the Eastern Orthodox churches were brilliant. They were brilliant. They did not like the idea of using the Gregorian calendar. They weren't going to play nice. So they still use the Julian calendar. Every Eastern Orthodox church to this day still uses the Julian calendar for movable feast days, like Easter. And we are now 13 days. 13 days. There is a 13-day difference now between the Julian calendar and the Gregorian calendar. So when Easter changes every year, the day that it changes every year, it is because we use the Gregorian calendar daily, every day, is what we live by. But the churches go by the Julian calendar. And the Julian calendar in this century are 13 days out. Once we hit the 22nd century, in 2100, we will be 14 days out. It's crazy. Why they do it, I don't know, but they do. For every movable feast, so for every feast day that is movable throughout the year, they use the Julian calendar. And it's 13 days out. And that is why Easter moves. And if you're in any other religion where your feast days move, that is the reason why. It's because it's run by the Julian calendar. And the Julian calendar is 13 days out of whack from the calendar we use today. And that's insane. But there we go. And it all stems from the ancient Egyptians. Solar calendar, the Coptic calendar, which is really cool. And I would never have learnt any of that if it hadn't been for my son. And that is so cool. I just couldn't believe it. I was like, awesome. Anyway, I'm going to go because I have fucking freezing. Bye.